First, some of the things that we've been working on in Washington, I must tell you, I think one of the real challenges we have in the country now is energy. And we are very dependent on some of our sources of energy on foreign countries, particularly in petroleum. All the petroleum we use in this country, 62% of it is imported. And some of that comes from places in the world that are very dangerous, very unstable, and frankly, in some cases, very unfriendly to the United States. So to the extent that we can, we want to begin to move away from that reliance on foreign petroleum. And in that respect, in the last session of Congress, I was very involved in the energy bill. I was the co-sponsor of the energy bill on the committee that considered it and on the conference committee that drafted it. One of the things that we did was to mandate an increased use of ethanol. And this is an example of a piece of legislation that had results and had them rather quickly. When we passed that bill, there were 0 ethanol production plants anywhere in the state of Ohio. Today, in the 5th District of Ohio alone, there are 8 ethanol plants planned. And if any of you are in farming, and you're raising corn, you know what it's done for corn prices. It's greatly increased the demand. So that's something that's going to be good for the environment, and it's certainly going to be good for the economy because it's bringing jobs into our district. But having said that, I want to caution you, that's not the end-all be-all. You can't count on corn ethanol to make up that whole difference of what we're importing, but it certainly is a big help. I think also you're going to see as a result of that energy legislation, more nuclear power utilized. We haven't built a nuclear power plant in this country in 25 years. But there's a change of attitude among a lot of people who previously opposed nuclear power, because, including a lot of environmental groups, because they're recognizing it as a clean source of energy. And many other countries of the world are way ahead of us in the way they're using that kind of power. Another thing that I think is important was a part of this bill. This isn't an instant solution either, it's a long-range solution. It's clean coal technology. Now, most of the electricity we use in Ohio, 52% actually, comes from coal production. The problem with coal is you have environmental consequences. So part of this bill has a significant amount of money for research into clean coal technology. Because if we can use coal cleanly, we are in a very good shape energy-wise. You can even, from coal, there's a process that's technologically feasible that you can gasify it and make gasoline to run in your cars. So how much coal do we have? You know, we're the Saudi Arabia of coal. We're sitting on 300 to 600 years supply. So if we're able to use it environmentally effectively, that would be a good thing. Another area that I'm involved in somewhat this year deals with sex offenders. Last year, in last Congress, I introduced 2 bills dealing with sex offenders, both of which are now law. One provided for a national database of sex offenders. Now, most of the states already had a database for sex offenders, but there was no one national central place you could go to track it, either law enforcement or individuals. So that creates that national database. As I say, it is now law. The other bill called for the Justice Department to come up with a uniform way of classification of what sex offenders are. And the reason is, not all states classify them the same. One type of act in Indiana might be classified in a different way, the same act in Ohio or Nebraska or California. So we want to have a uniform system. Then to follow up on that, with one of my colleagues from the other side of the aisle, this year, I introduced legislation which would call for sex offenders to have to register their emails or their online identifiers with pretty heavy penalties if they didn't. Why? Because that has become the venue of choice for sexual predators to go after young children. And so I hope we can get that passed. And the sites on which these exchanges take place, I support doing that because they don't want those people on there for that purpose either. For example, at the news conference we had announcing the bill, one of the participants was MySpace, saying how they would support that legislation.